Hello and welcome to Australia, the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest coral reef in the world. It contains 3,000 individual reefs, 900 islands, and spans 1,400 miles off the coast of Australia. It can be seen from space and is currently endangered due to pollution and climate change. Here we are in Michigan, way over here with this mitten state in North America, and Australia is way down here. Now, the Great Barrier Reef is located right off the top part of Australia here. Now, we already talked about how it's made up of 3,000 individual coral reefs. Coral are living things. They grow wider each year by 1 to 3 centimeters, which is about an inch, and taller by up to 10 inches a year. They have an extraordinary diversity of life, 400 species of coral, 30 different species of whales and dolphins, 1,500 species of fish, 17 species of sea snakes, 6 species of turtles breed here, 125 species of sharks and stingrays, 9 species of seahorses, 2,200 kinds of plants, including 500 species of just algae and seaweed, more than 215 species of birds, and also starfish, jellyfish, saltwater crocodiles, and more. There is so much packed into this little area that we want to save and explore. What does it mean to Australians? The Aboriginal people have been living in Australia for 40,000 years, and the Great Barrier Reef is important to them spiritually and culturally. It's also important to Australians because of tourism. It brings in approximately 2 million people to visit the Great Barrier Reef every year, and that brings money to the local economy. It's important for fishing. Industrial fishing is controlled by the government and is limited to approximately 2,000 people in order to prevent overfishing. Hunting. In addition to fishing, many people can hunt animals like green turtles for personal, domestic, or non-commercial uses, which usually means pets. Pollution and climate change are causing portions of the Great Barrier Reef to die off, so conservation experts have been working to preserve and grow back these vulnerable areas. Let's look at pictures of the Great Barrier Reef. This is really cool. They actually have an underwater art museum in the Great Barrier Reef that people can scuba dive through. You can see a couple of divers. Here's a diver, and here's a diver. And these are actually sculptures of people underneath the sea. You can see some of the diversity of the fish and the coral, all the different kinds of plants and coral and fish. Here we have a sea turtle, and again, more different kinds of coral. We see some that are sort of wavy, some that are spiky, some that are smaller, some that are larger. There's so much biodiversity in the Great Barrier Reef. Here we see a turtle, a kind of a shark, manta ray, another fish. Here we have a starfish. These are some people snorkeling, and we can see that we have the clownfish and the sea anemone. Some of you may recognize the clownfish from the movie Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo was actually set near Australia, so that is a really great pop culture connection. Here we have a shark and some little fish, some coral. You can see how blue the water is. Now we're getting into jellyfish. There are tons of jellyfish in the area, including the deadly box jellyfish. This is going to be our project if you choose the Great Barrier Reef. We're going to do some jellyfish. And you can see just how beautiful they are. All the shapes. We see this wavy top, these tentacles that come down, pink and white. These ones are under a blue light so we can see them in the dark. This one has that big bulby head and all those tentacle legs. So what's next? Next, we get to draw our jellyfish. And then the week after that, we will be painting. So remember, if you choose this project, we're going to start it this week and finish it next week. So you have to continue on the same choice next week. Have fun.
All right, artists, welcome back. We are going to start drawing our jellyfish for our Great Barrier Reef project. Now we're going to use crayons today to set up our wax resist. So I'm going to use a couple of colors of green and a white. I'm going to use the white for my jellyfish. Now this one's a tough one because we have to kind of look at our paper on an angle in order to always see our jellyfish. But when we're drawing, we're going to draw a shape that looks like an upside down U. I'm going to draw it with a crayon here first, and then I'll flip my paper over and restart. It's going to end up looking sort of like an upside down U, and we're going to add that wiggly line at the bottom, and then we'll go ahead and add all those little tentacles. So we saw some that were sort of wiggly, some that were straight, more wiggly. You can draw whichever jellyfish you saw that you liked. All right, so I'm going to do this. But on the other side, I'm going to flip my paper over and restart. And I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to draw 3 different jellyfish using white. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add one. And I can kind of see a little bit of the gloss of my paper. Make sure you push really hard when you're doing this so that when we paint over it, the paint doesn't stick to it and gives us that wax resist. Now I'm going to give it a little squiggly. And I can kind of see, you can even kind of see on my camera here, how it picks up that little bit of white. And you can kind of see the shine. So that's helpful when you're working. And I'm going to add those little squigglies. And some straight ones. I'm going to draw another one over here. And I want to make sure that I'm not scribbling. Getting enough. And then draw my wiggly line at the bottom. And then my wiggly lines coming off the bottom here. And maybe some straight ones. Okay, if you wanted to draw some of those other ones that we saw that were sort of like a pinkish color, you could do that if you had something really light. I like the way the white turns out. I'm going to draw a teeny one to make it look like it's way in the back. So this one's only like this big, whereas my other ones are like this big. It's so hard for you to see with the white. Draw my wiggly lines coming down, and my straight lines coming down. Now I'm going to add a little bit of seaweed here on the bottom. And you can add some coral too. I'm going to sort of keep it minimal this week and see what happens next week, because I can already see that I am overlapping my white a little bit. So I'm just going to put a little bit here just to sort of give that idea that this is seaweed. Alright, so that's it for this week. I have drawn one jellyfish here, one little one here, and one bigger one here. Now I'll hold it up to see if maybe you can kind of see it. Yeah, you can see it. There's my big one here, I have a big one here, and I have a little one here. Now next week we're going to go ahead and paint over this and give it a wash of blue and see how it goes from there. And we're going to add some more details too using colored pencil. So remember, this is a 2-week project. This is week 1. Next week you have to choose the Great Barrier Reef project again in order to finish our jellyfish. All right, my friends, have fun.